They don't warn you when life decides to snap you in half. It doesn't knock. It doesn't ask if you're ready. It just hits. Hard. And when it does, most people crumble. They cry, they beg, they run toward anything that looks like comfort. But not you. Not if you want to become powerful. Not if you want to rise without permission. Machiavelli never spoke to the comfortable. His words were fire for the broken, the betrayed, the discarded. He wrote not for the privileged, but for those standing in the ashes of what they used to be. Because that's where the real game begins. When life breaks you, it watches what you do next. Do you fold, or do you forge? You want to know who you are. Let it all fall apart. Let the job go. Let the friends turn their backs. Let the future grow dark. Because it's in that storm you meet the version of yourself that no one else sees. If your mind is weak, you rot in that darkness. But if your mind is cold, sharp, alert, you evolve. Pain isn't the enemy. It's the gatekeeper. It doesn't just test your strength. It creates it. It separates the fragile from the forged. And if you let it, pain will build you a mind that can never be broken again. This world doesn't care how you feel. It responds only to what you become. So when they leave you in the dark, don't scream. Sit in silence. Watch. Dissect your thoughts. Learn where your weakness lives, then starve it. Don't reach out. Reach inward. Because the day you build a mind that doesn't collapse under pressure is the day you become untouchable. You weren't put here to be liked. You weren't put here to stay soft. You were put here to become dangerous to anything that ever tried to destroy you. And if you feel that shift happening in your soul right now, say it. Pain sharpens my power. That's how this starts. Weak minds seek comfort. Strong minds seek control. When most people are hurt, they look for distraction, reassurance, escape. They scroll, they drink, they numb themselves with noise, because facing the war inside is too much. But the truth is this: comfort kills growth. And that's exactly what the world wants. People addicted to ease. People who never rise. If you want to be untouchable, you have to rewire how your brain responds to discomfort. You were trained to avoid pain. You were trained to silence your struggle. You were trained to stay small. But Machiavelli would tell you, control is the highest form of power, and it doesn't start with others, it starts with your own mind. While others chase dopamine, you train focus. While they seek escape, you sit with the storm. While they panic, you plan. That's not heartlessness. That's dominance. Power over the only thing that truly matters, your psychology. People will call you cold when you stop reacting. Let them. They say that because they can no longer control you. Silence will scare them. Your indifference will offend them. But you don't owe them softness. You owe your mind strength. You train your mind beyond emotion. You don't get there by being soft. You get there by confronting your darkest thoughts and refusing to flinch. That's where most people break. But not you. Not anymore. If you're ready to rise past emotion, past weakness, past the need to be comforted, say it with your chest. My control is my revenge. You were never weak because life hurt you. You became weak because you let emotion hijack your judgment. You handed over your crown to chaos. And the second you did, you became prey. Pain is inevitable. But interpretation is a choice. In the realm of power, the one who controls meaning controls everything. Life will break your body, but if it breaks your mind, you were never ready to begin with. You need to unlearn the belief that emotional reaction equals authenticity. It doesn't. It equals predictability. And predictable people are already owned. The world studies you. It watches how you react, what triggers you, what makes you chase. And every time you respond the same way, you prove you're still under their control. So what's the move? You become emotionally disciplined. Not emotionless, disciplined. You feel the heat, but you don't move unless it's calculated. You cry behind locked doors. You speak less, but when you do, it cuts. You don't argue with people who already made up their minds. You don't chase clarity from chaos. Why? Because your focus is sacred. No one earns a place in your mental empire unless they've proven they deserve it. Machiavelli said it's safer to be feared than loved. And in psychological warfare, love makes you soft. Love ties you to illusion. But fear keeps a people cautious. Fear earns space in silence. It makes them think twice. That's the edge you're building. Not just strength, but psychological sharpness. Control that doesn't need to shout. So next time life throws fire at you, don't flinch. Don't scream, don't fold, stare it down. You've been broken before. This time you'll break through. That's the difference between who you were and who you're becoming. You want mental dominance? You want to replace chaos with clarity? Say it now. Say it like a command. I feel nothing. I move with precision. Most people stay broken because they accept the story life gave them. They wear their suffering like armor, thinking it earns them understanding. But Machiavellian power isn't earned through pity. It's seized through war. Psychological, internal, strategic. You want to become untouchable? Then rewrite your story. Right now. Tear down every narrative that says you're a victim. Burn every belief that says you were wronged and the world owes you something. It doesn't. Life owes you nothing. But it will offer you power if you prove you're ruthless enough to take it. Your trauma is not your personality. Your pain is not your identity. Stop calling it your truth. It was a test, a phase, a hit. Now destroy it. You're not here to tell the world what hurt you. You're here to show the world what you became because of it. People will try to remind you of who you used to be. Let them talk. Just make sure the version they're addressing doesn't exist anymore. That's how you gain control of the narrative. By killing off the part of yourself that stayed broken. By being someone they can't categorize anymore. Machiavelli knew that perception always outweighs reality. So when you speak, make your words cut. When you walk, carry silence like a loaded weapon. When they doubt you, don't explain. Exceed. And when life hits again, as it always will, you won't crumble. You'll analyze. You'll adapt. You'll use it. Because a man trained in pain becomes fluent in strategy. There will be nights where your own mind turns against you, where every doubt, every regret, every failure whispers louder than your purpose. That's the moment most people collapse. But not you. That's your moment to construct. You either collapse into weakness or construct your empire of the mind. Not with hype, not with hope. With control. Ruthless, precise control. The mind doesn't respect your emotions, it respects your consistency. So feed it truth. Train it to operate under pressure. And tattoo this in your soul. You are not the broken version of your past. You are the weapon that version created. Say it now. Declare it to yourself. I killed the old me. I walk as the weapon. If that switch just flipped in you, don't talk about it. Let the world scroll. You're building something they can't touch. And now you learn to kill attachment. Attachment is the most silent killer of power. It starts as love, hope, loyalty, and ends as chains. You chase people who were never meant to stay. You lower your standards to keep people who wouldn't bleed for you. That's the first fracture in your armor, caring too much about things that don't care about you. Machiavelli didn't build his empire by clinging. He built it by calculating, observing, and detaching when the moment called for it. If you want your mind to survive betrayal, study this principle deeply. Never attach your peace to anything external. Not people, not outcomes, not the version of yourself you were trained to be. Because the second something controls how you feel, it controls you. And a controlled man is a broken man in disguise. You want to become dangerous? Then become emotionally independent. Master the art of showing up with calm when chaos surrounds you. Let them wonder why you don't panic. Let them whisper about your stillness. That's the mark of evolution. Your silence becomes unsettling. Your absence becomes power. Your detachment becomes dominance. While the world screams, you don't flinch, not because you don't feel, but because you no longer need. Every time you detach, you reclaim energy. Every time you stop explaining, you sharpen your vision. Every time you choose not to react, you gain leverage. And every time you walk away in silence, you remind them that you were never theirs to control. You were meant to be observed, not owned. Understand this. Being unbothered is not coldness, it's clarity. And in Machiavellian warfare, clarity is lethal. Now they'll try to guilt you. They'll say you've changed, that you're selfish. Let them. That's the price of finally choosing power over approval. You stopped bleeding for people who never noticed your wounds. You stopped shrinking so others could feel tall. You stopped playing the emotional servant, and now the same people who drained you want access to the new version. They don't get to have it. You don't need closure. You don't need applause. You need clarity and the psychological distance to execute your next move in silence. That's what Machiavelli would have called supreme discipline, to act without being seen, to cut without hesitation, to feel without being enslaved. So you train your mind to drop what weakens it. You release what drains. You silence what distracts. You're not here to please, you're here to position. And positioning starts with emotional withdrawal. You must build an internal fortress that no one has the key to. And when you do, the world loses its grip. They can talk, they can leave, they can lie, but they'll never break what they can't access. The more you detach, the more they notice. Not because you're gone, but because you no longer depend on being seen. Power doesn't chase. Power disappears, and absence does the damage. That's your new warfare. Subtle, cold, effective. If something inside you just snapped, if you're done explaining, done chasing, done hoping, then say this now. Attachment is weakness. I choose control. Say it. Lock it in. Let the weak scroll. You're here to rule from within. They'll say isolation is dangerous. That being alone means you're broken. But that's a lie created by those too scared to face themselves in silence. Weak minds need noise. They need distraction. They need people to avoid the war inside, but not you. You've entered a phase most never survive. Chosen isolation, not loneliness. Solitude. In that solitude, you will forge a mind no one can bend. This is where it all gets quiet, and your thoughts get loud. Every insecurity rises, every fear, every regret. But it's not an attack. It's an audit, a full reckoning. Machiavelli thrived in that place. He didn't chase comfort. He sharpened in solitude. He built in silence while the world slept. Because solitude is the only place illusions die. You begin to see what broke you. You begin to see what must be burned for you to rise. Most people run from that moment. They flood it with noise, with screens, with people, anything to avoid the mirror. But not you. You're going to sit in that silence and dominate it. You'll hear the old beliefs screaming for survival, and you'll kill them one by one. This isn't healing. This isn't self-care. This is transformation. And transformation is never soft. It's never pretty. It's brutal. It's cold, but it's real. This is where you rewrite your code, where you stop thinking like a servant and start thinking like a strategist. You detach from emotional noise and anchor into tactical clarity. You restructure how you wake up, how you breathe, how you walk into a room. You stop chasing dopamine. You start chasing discipline. You no longer ask, "Why did this happen to me?" You start asking, "How can I use this?" That shift right there, that's your rebirth. Not spiritual, not inspirational, strategic. In isolation, every old weakness tries to crawl back in. Old habits show up wearing new clothes. Familiar voices whisper false hope. Past relationships knock, pretending to care. But you've seen the playbook now. You don't open the door. You don't entertain. You don't negotiate with the thing that broke you. You build alone. You study alone. You evolve alone. And when you return, you're not the same. When a man comes back from isolation, he is either more broken or more dangerous. There is no middle. Weak minds come back seeking validation. Strong minds come back needing nothing. That's the road you're on now. You're not doing this to be seen. You're doing this to reclaim your edge. The world doesn't reward emotional display, it rewards psychological precision. So let silence become your gym. Let loneliness become your weapon. And when life throws fire again, you won't run. You'll walk through it like a man trained in stillness, built in fire. That's what scares them the most, that you no longer need anyone to feel complete, that you no longer beg to be heard, that you no longer share your plans, because now you've tasted something more powerful than validation: freedom. Machiavelli wrote his most lethal ideas alone. He understood that influence is forged in the shadows, not in crowds. And so must you be. Stop fixing your mind in public. Stop looking for clarity from people who don't even know who they are. Go inward. Go dark. Let your silence cook your next move. And when you re-emerge, don't explain. Don't announce. Just execute. The ones who ghosted you? Who mocked you? Who thought you'd stay broken? They won't even recognize what you've become. Not because you changed, but because you became someone beyond what they could imagine. This is what happens when you embrace isolation. You don't become a better version of your old self. You become unrecognizable. So I ask you now, are you ready to disappear from everything that distracts and reappear as everything they fear? Then say it now. I train in silence, I return with power. Let them keep talking. You're done explaining. You're just getting started, because pain is the greatest intelligence test life will ever give you. Not school, not books, not degrees. Pain. The kind that breaks your routine. The kind that humiliates your pride. The kind that exposes your illusions. And in that moment, the weak scream for comfort. But the future kings, they go still. They go cold. They go silent. They stop feeling and start calculating. Because pain is data. It tells you exactly where your defenses were down. It shows you who you depended on. It exposes what you didn't want to see. This is where you stop treating pain like a punishment and start treating it like a scalpel. You dissect it. You listen to it. You ask, why did this hit me so hard? And the answer always points inward. Somewhere you let your mind fall asleep. Machiavelli would remind you, peace is an illusion. Never let comfort dull your weapon. Life is not a safe zone. It's a battlefield filled with moods, traps, betrayals, and consequences. The moment you treat it like war, you start thinking like a tactician. Pain stops being suffering. It becomes feedback. That heartbreak? Data. That failure? Coordinates. That betrayal? A list of your blind spots. Every stab you feel, an opportunity to reinforce your armor. While others collapse under emotion, you begin to craft responses, not reactions. And that's the difference. A response is not emotional. It is strategic. It is timed. It is cold. And that is power. Most people are playing checkers with their pain, jumping from one emotion to the next, fast, loud, erratic. But you're playing chess. You're 5 moves ahead. You're not asking, why me? You're asking, where does this position me long term? That's the Machiavellian mindset. Cold, clear, focused. So the next time life stabs you, don't bleed. Analyze. What did it expose? What weakness made it possible? What blind spot let them get close? What habit scattered your energy? Pain isn't just an alert. It's a blueprint. But only if you're ruthless enough to study it without flinching. And when you become capable of not only dissecting your pain, but predicting it, that's when your power multiplies. You stop walking into the same traps. You see the patterns before they repeat. You read people before they even open their mouths. That's not trauma. That's tactical memory. That's your nervous system saying, we've seen this before, and we're not falling for it again. This is the birth of intuition. Not magical, not spiritual, tactical, built by fire, sharpened by logic. You stop feeling your way through life. You start observing. And from that observation, you calculate. That's what makes you lethal. But strategy isn't just about how you treat others. It's how you treat yourself. You wake up with a protocol. You don't let random thoughts dictate your mood. You don't let feelings decide your direction. You breathe. You pause. You ask, what does this moment require of me? Cold? Silent? Calculated? Assertive? Tactical men never enter situations unarmed. And the weapon you carry? It's not in your hand. It's in your mind. You begin to filter everything. Conversations, habits, environments. You no longer speak for validation. You speak with purpose. You don't show up to be liked. You show up to be felt. And every time someone tests you, you don't bark. You observe. You don't argue. You document. You don't react. You reposition. That's the man life fears. Not the one who avoids pain, but the one who uses it like a compass. You walk different. You think further. You smile less. But when you do, it means something. You don't need to shout. Your silence is your warning. That's the energy that changes rooms. You've been taught to feel your feelings. No, feel your strategy. Emotion is not your leader. It's your signal. Learn from it. Then outmaneuver it. Because when you master stillness under pressure, they'll never see your next move coming. That's what they fear most. Not the man who explodes. The man who calculates in silence. The one who doesn't just survive pain, but uses it to sharpen his precision. Machiavelli understood what the world forgot. Strategy is the only true power. Charm fades, emotion fluctuates, but strategy outlasts them all. That's how the weak flip the script. That's how the broken rewrite the outcome. You don't become powerful by staying soft. You become powerful by making cold, clear decisions in the heat of chaos. So from this point on, stop praying for less pain. Start extracting value from it. Let it mold you, refine you, harden you. Because the goal was never to become louder. It was to become untouchable. The one who moves, but is never moved. You don't get there by accident. You get there by design, by discipline, by repetition. That's the path you're walking now. And the next step? Emotional immunity. Let's get one thing straight. The world doesn't destroy you with weapons. It destroys you with expectations, with emotional traps, with pressure dressed up as morality. They tell you to be nice when you should be silent, to forgive when you should walk away, to explain when you should disappear. And every time you comply, you bleed a little more. That's how control works, not through force, but through feelings. But that game, you're done playing it. You're done bleeding for people who sharpen the knife. You're done giving your energy to those who feed off your reactions. This is where you begin your emotional immunity. Not numbness, immunity. There's a difference. Numbness avoids. Immunity absorbs and remains unaffected. That's what you're building now. You hear their words, but they don't pierce. You feel their absence, but it doesn't shake you. You see their disloyalty, but it doesn't own you. Why? Because your core is no longer open to anything that hasn't earned access. You've reinforced your internal walls. You've learned that energy is a resource, and now you spend it with precision. The weak give their energy away like it's free. One insult, and they spiral. One ghosted message, and they question their worth. One betrayal, and they crumble into victimhood. But Machiavelli would remind you, a ruler must be unshakable, not because he's numb, but because he's focused. You can't run your empire if anyone can destabilize you with a few careless words. You can't lead if you're emotionally hijacked every time someone disrespects you. And you sure as hell can't protect your mind if you're handing out access to anyone who asks. From now on, you audit everything. Every conversation, every environment, every person. You ask, does this sharpen me or scatter me? And the second you feel yourself shrinking, doubting, or bending, cut it. Quietly. Strategically. Without announcement. Not out of revenge, but preservation. They don't need to know you're done. They just need to feel the absence where your emotional investment used to be. You're not chasing clarity from people who feed on your confusion. You're not proving your worth to people who benefit from your doubt. Your self-respect is locked now, and it's non-negotiable. You know who you are, and that version of you doesn't ask twice, doesn't chase, doesn't beg. That version walks away so cleanly that people start questioning whether they ever really knew you at all. That's what makes you terrifying now. Not your anger, but your calm. Not your noise, but your silence. Not your fists, but your refusal to react. You don't argue, you don't explain. You vanish, emotionally first, physically later. And when they go looking for the old version of you, the one that tolerated, that justified, that softened, they won't find him. That version is dead, and in its place is a man whose absence echoes louder than their noise ever could. That's your weapon now. Absence, loaded with presence. You build a standard so high that anyone who brings chaos, disrespect, or inconsistency self-destructs before they ever reach you. Not because you attack, but because your clarity reflects back everything they're trying to hide from. People can't stand that reflection, especially when it's not being softened by your sympathy anymore. Let them call you distant. Let them say you've changed. They're right. You have. You've evolved past the version of yourself that needed to be liked. That over-explained, that tolerated too much. Now you're immune to anything that drains you, and they feel it. That coldness? It's not hate, it's peace. That silence? It's not distance, it's protection. You're not seeking to be understood anymore. You're seeking to be undisturbed. Machiavelli once said, "The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him." So ask yourself, who still has emotional access to you? Who still holds influence they didn't earn? Who do you keep letting in after they've shown you they don't belong? That's your audit. That's your cleanup. When it's done, you'll stand lighter, sharper, more dangerous than ever before. Because nothing is more powerful than a man who protects his inner world, not with rage, not with revenge, but with silence, distance, and unshakable discipline. You don't need to scream to be respected. You just live in a way that disrespect can't even get close to your energy. And the next time life tests you, it won't find the same entry points. You've sealed the cracks. You've burned the bridges. And what stands now? A mind immune to everything that once shattered it. So ask yourself, honestly, are you still reacting? Or are you controlling? Are you still bleeding for the same stories? Or are you rewriting them? Are you still handing out emotional access to the unworthy? Or have you cut the cord? If you're ready to stop being emotionally available to anything that weakens you, say it now. My peace is locked. No one gets in. Let the world keep reaching for the old you. That door is sealed. You've entered a state of psychological sovereignty now. And once you arrive here, you never go back. Because the next level is presence. Not just being in the room, but commanding it without a word. You see, powerful men don't speak often. They don't explain. They don't argue. They walk in silence. But their presence speaks volumes. That's not arrogance. That's calibration. They know the battlefield they're walking into. They know every eye is watching. They understand that in the game of power, perception outranks truth. And here's the law. The less you say, the more control you hold. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard. You carry an energy that shifts the atmosphere without anyone knowing why. That's what Machiavelli meant when he said, rulers must appear strong even when they are not. Because in the real world, the illusion of power is power. And now, you train for that. Not to pretend, but to become unreadable, untouchable, cold in the calmest way. Your silence becomes a mirror. People begin projecting their guilt, their fear, their agendas onto you. And you say nothing. You let them expose themselves while you expose nothing. That's how you dominate without confrontation. That's how you win without moving a finger. You've seen it before. A room changes when a certain man walks in. The energy tightens. Conversations shift. People adjust their tone, their posture. That's not mystery. That's presence. And presence isn't given. It's forged. In solitude, in stillness, in relentless discipline. It's born when you no longer chase attention. When you no longer explain yourself. When you no longer try to be understood. You walk with quiet certainty. You know who you are. And more importantly, you know who you're not. That's the threshold where true dominance begins, not in noise, but in refusal. Weak men overcompensate. They speak too much. They brag. They try to fill space with noise to prove their worth. But you're becoming something rarer. A man who can sit in the storm and never flinch. A man who doesn't justify. A man who doesn't chase. A man who doesn't react. Because he already saw the move coming. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be felt. There's a difference. Liked men are accessible, soft, easy to read. But felt men are unpredictable, self-contained, respected from a distance. You don't beg for attention, you remove it. And when you withdraw it, they notice, they panic. Because silence from a man of power is louder than 100 desperate voices. Machiavelli would have told you, the most feared men in history were not the loudest. They were the most deliberate. They didn't announce their moves. They made them. They didn't seek revenge through chaos. They let absence rearrange the room. That's what you're learning now. To replace performance with presence. Explanation with observation. To enter spaces like your energy is currency. Because it is. If they don't respect your presence, make them feel your absence. If they interrupt you, fall silent. If they challenge you, don't bark. Move. This is the new warfare. Psychological, invisible, lethal. You don't dominate with aggression. You dominate by being untouchable, the one who doesn't blink, the one who walks away without apology, the one who never asks to be seen, but is always noticed. But understand this clearly. This kind of presence is earned through brutal self-control. You must kill the need to explain yourself. You must bury the impulse to defend your name every time it's mentioned. You must train your face to remain calm even when you're being lied to, baited, disrespected. That's when you win. Not when you explode, but when you give them nothing. No reaction, no weakness. Just a cold, quiet mind that says, I saw it. I calculated it. And it wasn't even worth a breath. You become dangerous the moment you stop reacting. When your silence forces people to confront themselves, when your energy forces them to rethink every word they were about to say. That's how respect is built. Not by begging for it, by becoming contrast. They expect you to argue, you stay quiet. They expect you to chase, you disappear. They expect you to break, you rise. That's power, and they'll never admit it, but they'll adjust. They'll tread carefully, because now they know, this version of you doesn't fold. This is what being feared without being cruel looks like. You're not out here trying to hurt people. You're just carrying yourself in a way that makes it clear, I don't need you, I don't trust you, and I don't explain myself to you. That alone terrifies them. Because most people can't survive without being seen. Most people can't breathe without approval. But you're learning to thrive in silence. And that makes you a threat in every room you enter. So from this day forward, let your presence speak for you. Don't explain your value. Don't broadcast your intent. Become so focused, so emotionally disciplined, so unreadable that they feel you before you speak. You don't owe the world your words. You owe yourself your power. Say it now. My presence is my power. My silence is my strike. That's the signal that you've entered a new state of being. Not just stronger, sharper. Not just calm, calculated. You've felt betrayal. You've tasted silence. You've been left alone with thoughts that nearly consumed you. And yet you're still standing. Not just standing, becoming colder, becoming clearer, becoming something life can't bend. Not because life got easier, but because you finally realized this world doesn't reward softness. It rewards minds that don't die, even when everything else does. This is where you stop surviving and start constructing. You're not a victim. You're not a survivor. You're a weapon, a presence, a mind that has been tested and instead of breaking, recalculated. That's what Machiavelli meant when he said, men must either be feared or crushed. There's no middle. Power doesn't exist in half measures. It doesn't bend to hope. It doesn't care about intentions. It bows only to those who've trained their minds to remain ready. Always. Most people will turn back here. They'll miss the noise. They'll miss the validation. They'll miss the feeling of being accepted. But not you. You've burned the bridge back to softness. You've seen what being nice gets you. Used, overlooked, manipulated. You've seen what over-explaining does. It invites ignorance. You've seen what emotional reaction creates. Weakness. You've outgrown all of it. And now, you don't look back. You don't wait. You don't hesitate. You construct forward. The unbreakable mind isn't born from motivation. It's born from process, from brutal repetition, from precise decision. You wake up and you choose sharpness. You act and you choose control. You speak and every word is strategic. You walk into rooms not to belong, but to command. You don't chase outcomes. You build leverage. You don't give access. You raise the price. You don't prove worth. You live like a man who doesn't ask to be valuable. That's the shift. That's the line you've crossed. You're no longer emotional. You're strategic. You're not living on reaction. You're living on protocol. You don't need things to go right anymore. You've trained yourself to win even when everything goes wrong. Because the game isn't emotional now. It's psychological. It's tactical. It's war. And your mind is the battlefield. So now you walk different, not with arrogance, but with presence. You don't enter rooms seeking to be accepted. You enter knowing that your energy shifts the space. You no longer try to be understood. You wear your silence like armor. That's the mark of someone who's trained in fire, someone who stopped explaining and started becoming impossible to ignore. This is what Machiavelli would have called invincibility through perception. When people realize they can't control your mind, they begin to respect you differently. They stop testing your patience. They stop playing with your name. They stop treating you like an option, because everything about you now communicates one thing. This man is untouchable, not because he's violent, but because he no longer bleeds for the world. This mind you've built, it doesn't crave attention anymore. It doesn't react to betrayal. It doesn't fall for sweet words or shallow promises. It can't be lured by illusions, because it has seen through it all. It has felt every sting and still stood up sharper. It doesn't panic under pressure. It doesn't break under disappointment. It doesn't collapse under loneliness. Because now it knows everything outside you is unpredictable. But what's inside? That's yours. That's sacred. That's where you lead from. That's a mind made for war. A mind that doesn't fold when life gets cruel. It watches. It waits. It adapts. And it strikes only when the moment is right. You didn't arrive here by luck. You arrived because life tried to destroy you, and you used the wreckage as fuel. Every betrayal was a lesson. Every rejection was redirection. Every breakdown was a blueprint. You didn't drown in the dark. You studied it. And now you don't chase peace. You construct it. You don't wait for people to change. You outgrow them. You don't cry for closure. You give yourself silence. Because you finally understand something most never will. Power is not about having control over others. It's about never letting them have control over you. Now you lead, not from noise, not from emotion, from depth, from logic, from calculation. You don't argue with chaos. You don't respond to bait. You don't explain to noise. You let absence speak. You let distance sting. You let your silence do the damage. You've stopped chasing people who misunderstand your value. You've stopped over-explaining yourself to people committed to misreading you. And now, when they lie, provoke, or test you, you don't move. That's the shift. That's the edge. You don't need to defend. You don't need to react. You simply disappear, mentally, emotionally, physically. Because now you know, power doesn't plead. It positions. And what stands in your place is a man who is unreadable, untouchable, unshakable. You don't flinch when they test you. You don't fold when life hits. You don't fear solitude. You embrace it. You build in it. You weaponize it. Because what they never understood is this: you never needed the crowd. You needed the silence. You needed the storm. You needed the betrayal. Because that's where you became something else. You became someone they can't predict, someone they can't manipulate, someone who doesn't need attention to stay whole, someone who doesn't need acceptance to move forward. That's what they fear. That you no longer seek their validation, that you no longer react when they withhold it, that your self-respect no longer negotiates. And now, you don't even flinch when they walk away, because your worth was never tied to who stayed. It was built in who you became after they left. So ask yourself, are you still explaining your value, or have you started living it? Are you still asking to be understood? Or have you mastered the art of being unbothered? Are you still bleeding for people who wouldn't even blink if you collapsed? Or have you closed the door so tightly that no one who drains your energy even knows how to find the handle? Because this is the final state. The state where your energy is so sharp, so composed, so dialed in, that it becomes a shield, a force field, an untouchable presence. You no longer lead with emotion, you lead with execution. You don't need to say what's next. You just do it, quietly, lethally, strategically. That's what real transformation looks like. Not louder, not softer, sharper. You don't post about the pain. You don't share the plan. You just move. And when they finally realize who you've become, it'll be too late, because you'll be out of reach, out of sight, untouchable by anything that once could bend you. This isn't about ego. This isn't about revenge. This is about alignment, about choosing clarity over chaos, silence over drama, control over comfort, focus over feelings. This is about becoming what life tried to keep you from becoming. Something so internally complete that nothing external can shake you again. So stop reopening doors that should have stayed locked. Stop negotiating with thoughts that want to make you small. Stop tolerating anything that subtracts from your edge. You're not here to be palatable. You're here to be undeniable, not charming, unreadable, not nice, respected, not loud, felt. Your old self would have begged. This self doesn't speak. He builds. Your old self would have flinched. This one calculates. Your old self needed validation. This one doesn't even need to be seen. And when the world comes looking for weakness in you again, they'll find only one thing. Nothing. No reaction, no emotion, no opening. Because the man who's mastered his own mind, he's no longer controlled by anyone else's. You've trained your mind to be strong when life breaks you. And that right there, that is Machiavelli's coldest law. He who controls his mind controls the world. So I leave you with this final truth. You're not rebuilding. You're reprogramming. You're not recovering. You're recalculating. You're not waiting. You're walking. You're not seeking permission. You're building position. And that mindset, that's the one they can't break. That's the one they can't own. That's the one they'll never understand, but will always respect. So if this series has carved something new into your thinking, if something clicked so hard you'll never see the world the same again, then say it now. Say it like a command to yourself and a warning to the world. I am untouchable now. I own my mind. No more begging, no more breaking, no more explaining. Now move, quietly, and let your next move make the noise.